So I'm Liz Quigley, and we're talking about supporting the raise of minimum wage amount. This graph shows the poverty line for a family of 2 and a family of 3 and the minimum wage. The poverty line is the minimum income used as an official standard for determining the proportion of population living in poverty. Poverty is not being able to afford food or other items. In family 4, which is not shown on this graph, the poverty line is $23,850 per year. The minimum wage in a year for one person working is $15,080. This is way below the poverty line. Some states don't even pay the minimum wage, like Minnesota, Wyoming, Arkansas, and Georgia. Other states have no minimum wage laws: Tennessee, South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. This is a problem. Others actually do pay the minimum wage or above, and that's good, but we need to still raise it. And there are 2 options to raising the minimum wage: $10.10, and that helps 50,000 workers in total, or $9. This helps 1,000 workers in total. More money to the people means that more people will be buying items, which means more companies need items, which means that they'll hire more people, which means more people will get jobs, and the government will get more money over a long period of time. Thanks.
Okay, hi, I'm Shelby, and we're here to argue that minimum wage should not be raised. It would just hurt the economy overall because it hurts small businesses, it lowers job opportunities, and it causes inflation. It would cause small businesses to close down because if they can barely afford to pay the people that they have now with minimum wage, if they raise minimum wage, they're not going to be able to pay those people. They're going to have to fire those people or shut down, which would essentially be firing all their people anyway. And that would cause unemployment to go way up. If the people wanted more money, like, I understand if there's a legitimate reason, like if they're hurt and can't work, or if they don't have access to things to help them get a better job, but most people are just too lazy to get off the couch and go find themselves a better job, or work hard at the job they're at to get a promotion. Instead, people just sit on the road and panhandle. If they wanted more money, they could go out and work and get some more money instead of just being lazy and not getting any money, and then they complain that they don't have money. So, thank you.
I'm Miranda Mudlight, and I'm arguing for the increase of minimum wage. Although in their argument they have stated that increasing minimum wage would increase unemployment, that's not true because several studies have showed that if you increase minimum wage, then the employees will be happier and they'll be less stressed because they won't have as many problems at home with money and paying bills and such. And so if they're less stressed and they earn more money, the productivity of the company will go up. And if the productivity goes up, then the company will be able to produce more product, which means they'll probably sell more. And it also will decrease labor costs that the employer has to pay, which is like payroll taxes, which includes like government-funded programs for people that don't earn enough, like food stamps or Medicare or unemployment, because if they don't have to pay that, because of if minimum wage is increased, then less people will need to have food stamps or other government programs, and if they don't need that, then the boss doesn't have to pay or contribute to paying for that for everyone else. So they'll be able to hire more workers because they're selling more products because the productivity is up. The main point is that minimum wage should be increased because it does not equal the cost of living. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they did a survey from 1950 to 2013, and it shows that when you increase the small increases in minimum wage, it would actually decrease unemployment. And the only year or years that wasn't true was 1970 to 1975. But that wasn't necessarily because they raised minimum wage that unemployment went up. It's because there was an energy crisis and there was significant recession. So really, there's no evidence that increasing minimum wage would lead to unemployment. If your family has only 2 people in it, you're already below the poverty line if you earn minimum wage. Minimum wage is $15,000 yearly. That's if you have a full-time job. And if you have 2 people in your household, assuming that one has a full-time job and one has a part-time job that makes minimum wage, you only make $15,730, which is barely above the poverty line. This is a graph that shows studies that studied if minimum wage increases would increase unemployment or decrease it. Here you have less precise studies, which gave more of a variation of whether jobs would be lost or jobs would grow. But the more precise studies, there's pretty much no change. And so increasing minimum wage would not increase unemployment.
Alright, I'm Allie Collins and I'm against minimum wage. Raising minimum wage, sorry. There's an estimate that boosting the minimum wage to about $10 per hour could reduce the total employment by about 500,000 jobs. And basically the argument is, would you rather raise a bunch of people's income or and have a bunch of people that are unemployed, or just keep everything the same? Because, okay, so it would leave about 500,000 people unemployed, but it could also raise just as many above the poverty line, which is a big deal because America is already having a problem with poverty and unemployment. But raising the minimum wage reduces the workers' job opportunities as well, because if you raise it, they won't have as much workers to work there, so they won't have as many hours because they'd have to pay them that much. It also may increase the number of immigrants because they might come in for bigger job opportunities to get more money. And because it would make an even smaller number of jobs for Americans because they're coming in and taking the jobs to get even more money than they already are. And education might not be as encouraged because you can get more money on a minimum wage to support yourself, so you wouldn't need as much you wouldn't need an education because you could get as much on minimum wage. And that's about it.
My name is Meredith Tarkington, and I am here to discuss why we should raise the minimum wage to at least a minimum of $10.10. Some 47 million Americans live in poverty today, and the key reason is the decline of minimum wage. Did you know that there are 17 million children today that live in poverty? children who don't have enough food, who don't have enough money to get clothes for school, children who perhaps even have the lights shut off on them in the day because their parents can't pay the bills. If you are a single parent and have a child, and you work at a job and earn minimum wage, you are underneath the poverty line. If you are a household of 2 people and you both work at a job that makes minimum wage, you are barely above it. A household of 4 people will be under the poverty line if 2 of the 4 people make minimum wage. A consequence of keeping the minimum wage low is that by underpaying workers, corporations are shifting the real costs of doing business to the general public. According to a study released this October by the University of California and the University of Illinois, 52% of America's fast food workers receive assistance from public programs, as she said, like food stamps and Medicare. Many people have recognized this negative consequence of letting the minimum wage dwindle, that 20 states and the District of Columbia have raised their minimum wages higher than the $7.25 that the federal rate requires. Congress is currently considering the Fair Minimum Wage Act that would gradually raise the minimum wage to $10.10. This would help Americans because if we have more money coming into our incomes, then we will be able to spend more money. By spending more money instead of saving and living from paycheck to paycheck, then we are boosting the economy. By putting more money into the economy, then everything flourishes. Because if supply and demand, if people stop buying things and people have a hard time selling things, then we will eventually grind to a halt in terms of economic progress. Why be one of the richest countries in the world when most of your Americans can't, when most of your people cannot afford to eat? It's smaller here than we thought it would be, but Tennessee is this little light blue speck here. And if you wanted to own a 2-bedroom apartment in Tennessee, then you would have to work 69 hours a week on minimum wage in order to afford it. The standard is 40 hours a week. Raising minimum wage would help people get out of debt. If you had just a little bit more coming in every paycheck, then that would really help now, wouldn't it? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Allie Wheeler, and I'm here to talk to you about the effects of raising minimum wage on inflation. Most of you already know what inflation is, but in case you don't, it's where prices are rising but the value of your money is decreasing. Inflation is often caused by people earning money but not spending and putting it back into the economy. But raising minimum wage would also cause inflation. We know this because according to the U.S. Department of Labor, in 2009, minimum wage was raised to the current $7.25 an hour that it is now. Just since then, we have lost 5.8% of our purchasing power. Imagine if your parents in 2008 made $100,000. In 2009, that $100,000 would be worth $5,800 less. The raise from 2008 to 2009 was only 70 cents. If we raise it to the suggested $10 an hour, then we could expect a collective 38% rise in inflation. Imagine if your parents made $100,000 this year, and next year, that $100,000 was only worth $62,000. That's a huge difference. Inflation affects everyone, including those less fortunate. If we factor the expected inflation rates into their pay after it's been raised to $10 an hour, it actually comes out to be $6.20, which is less than the current $7.25. Raising minimum wage would be detrimental to everyone, so I don't even see why some people consider it to be a solution.
5 minutes. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to.
We have like 15, right?
What?
We have 15. You're the one who pulls the stone. Yeah, but I mean, there's no time for that.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I'd like to do what we can. You six go up and I'm going to go ahead and give out tickets for those of you that look so snazzy today. I appreciate the effort.
Is she recording us?
Oh, she uses Audacity. I use Audacity too.
Wait. The microphone is set really low. This is not recording much. Beep beep. See, look. It must be an equalizer.
Okay, who would like to talk first? Me. Okay, go ahead. Give them your attention, please.
2 decades of rigorous economic research has found that raising the minimum wage does not result in job loss. A November 2012 article in The Economist stated that evidence is mounting that moderate minimum wages can do more good than harm. Bastions of orthodoxy, such as the OECD, a rich country think tank, and the International Monetary Fund now assert that a moderate minimum wage probably does not do much harm and may do some good. Critics of the minimum wage proposal are making the same arguments as the last time the legislature increased the minimum wage in 2004. The hike to $7.15 an hour from the federal minimum of $5.15 an hour was phased in over 3 years. If the change had a cataclysmic effect on a business that depends heavily on minimum wage workers, we certainly missed it. Objections, while meriting consideration, are essentially objections to the very existence of a minimum wage, which has been a fixture in the U.S. since 1938 and has never stopped our economy from flourishing. Thank you. Crane's New York Business Magazine, February 2012 article.
If you think about it though, it really does cause unemployment because you've got these little businesses that are struggling to pay the employees they have minimum wage, and if you raise up minimum wage, they're going to have to get rid of half of their workers and or shut down. So I mean, you either have a little bit more employment loss or a lot more employment loss. There's no winning.
Okay, thought there?
An analysis of Census Bureau data finds that roughly 2/3, 66%, of low-wage workers are employed by large companies with over 100 employees, not small businesses. Furthermore, the largest low-wage employers, including retail and fast food chains such as Walmart and McDonald's, are earning strong profits today and can afford higher wages. Mom and pop shops rarely, ever, assign minimum wage.
I actually have an interesting demographic to share with you. Unless you are under the age of 24 at Walmart, you are making above minimum wage at $9 an hour. So large businesses are often not paying minimum wage already. Those who are receiving minimum wage are usually between the ages of 14 to 24, and when you think about it, those are students who are attending school and cannot afford the time to pay into their career and their career path to make above minimum wage.
If I may, only 20% of minimum wage workers are teenagers in school. If you are attending college, then you must have a job or else you won't be able to pay your loans
If you are,
and food.
if those college students, odds are all they have to pay for is themselves. And if it's a family, it should probably, I mean, you're more likely to be able to get a better job if you have a family rather than if you're just a college student, because minimum wage, like, a college student could live on that. They wouldn't be living large or anything, but I mean, they could live on that.
If families don't make above the poverty line, they're forced to move to areas that have an increase in crime, violence, or just seedy areas in general. And if families have to move there, then the kids are at risk because gang violence, or they could just be walking down the street.
By being in more dangerous areas, then students and other young children are more liable to join dangerous groups and be more influenced by negative things such as drugs and alcohol.
Minimum wage is more than enough to support one person, but I can see where it becomes a problem to support an entire family. But many companies are taking precautions and steps to include people who are not attending college into their workforce. There are applications for jobs where you may see bachelor's degree or equal experience. So you don't have to go to college to be able to get more than minimum wage. Families can get better jobs, they're just not taking the steps that they need to get there.
So you're making them all nice.